Alexander realized that Eliza was devaluing everything he was doing. The wife was not satisfied with anything. She kept feeling that Alexander was doing everything wrong. He didn't make enough money, he didn't come home from work on time, he didn't sit at his desk like that, and he didn't even sleep right. Every now and then, she did not hesitate to bring up examples of other men, husbands of friends, of Alexander and even his own brother, with whom, as she well knew, the husband had a strained relationship. Alexander was ready to endure all the attacks. But when Eliza got to the point of comparing him to Costi, Alexander immediately got angry. He would start swearing, yelling, and threatening divorce. Well, if they're all so good. Alexander was indignant. So why did you marry me? So you were not suitable for them? Yes, and then as love you a fool said in response to her husband. Eliza. The man himself did not understand why he loves his wife so much. Despite all the offense, he quickly forgot everything and again was ready to carry his wife in his arms. That is how they lived for many years. They loved each other, they argued, but they were together. The grown-up son wondered how his mother and father were not divorced. When he asked his father that question, Alexander smiled and shrugged. It was a mystery to him and himself. One evening, Eliza came home from work and suddenly broke the news to her husband. She quit her job and has no plans for the next few months. I want to rest, she explained to her husband. Alexander had no choice but to accept her decision, so his wife began an indefinite vacation. Soon, the man even liked that his beloved was at home. A delicious hot dinner was always waiting for him in the evening, and rested Elisa was smiling at him. At some point, Alexander began to feel that there were fewer quarrels and tantrums, and it was as if there was peace in the family. His wife's lack of work benefited everyone at once. One day, Alexander found a pack of cigarettes hidden behind a shelf in the hallway. He was surprised because neither he nor his wife had smoked in years. He immediately thought of his son, and when he returned from school, he asked him about it. "Makar is yours," said his father directly. "I don't smoke, Dad." The young man shrugged his shoulders. Makar was in high school, and Alexander was well aware that this was exactly the time when young boys and girls thought that smoking was cool and tried not to stand out from the crowd with opposing views. He was not going to scold his son, which is what he told him, but Makar reiterated that he did not smoke and this was the first time he had seen these cigarettes. His son's reaction was calm, his eyes did not run nervously and he did not try to disassociate himself from what his father had said. He looked at Alexander calmly and confidently, and he surrendered his position by apologizing to the boy. In the evening, when Eliza returned from her manicure, he asked her about her find. "Also, it's Eve," said the woman, and we searched that time to see where she had gone. Eve was Elisa's best friend. But Alexander couldn't remember her smoking. He handed his wife a pack of cigarettes and she promised to give them back to their owner. After a while, Alexander happened to meet Eve at the mall where he went shopping. They talked a little bit about how everyone was doing, and then the man asked, "Did Eliza give the cigarettes back to you?" "I found them behind the rack." "What kind of cigarettes?" surprised the interlocutor. "God with you. I gave up Alexander back in school." "Yes, so I thought Eliza said they were yours," Alexander muttered. He said goodbye to his wife's friend and went about his business, mentally sorting out the situation. His first thought was that Mecca had lied to his father and his mother was covering up her son's addiction. Then suddenly, another thought came out of the blue. A nasty, unpleasant thought. It made him sick and he stopped right in the middle of the sales floor, ahead of the cart in which he was picking up his groceries. What if Eliza was cheating on him? He put the goods to himself in the cart mechanically while he pondered what he should do now. At first, Alexander wanted to ask his wife directly why she had lied about the cigarette mistress. He wanted to find out if she was covering for Makar and if so, why aren't they telling him? But after some more thought, the man dismissed the idea. He knew his wife too well to do just that upon hearing these questions of his. Eliza became furious and would shout. Even though the couple fought quite often, it was not good for Alexander at all. Now already on the way home, he had the thought of installing a hidden camera at home. After weighing the pros and cons, Alexander settled on this very idea. The days spent waiting for an order with a camera dragged on like an eternity. He constantly checked his mail to see if his order had arrived, but found nothing. It took 2 weeks for the purchase to arrive, and during that time, Alexander was on pins and needles. He began to think that he was literally seeing all the signs of his wife's infidelity. He was winding himself up, terribly nervous. After figuring out the instructions and waiting until he was alone at home, Alexandra finally stopped the camera. The man prayed that his wife would not think of getting in where he had put her, or everything would be ruined. It was a spooky time for Alexander. Every now and then he checked to see if anyone was in their house. No normal functioning was out of the question. All this energy was spent trying to figure out if his wife was cheating on him or not. More than once he had imagined seeing the man who owned those ill-fated cigarettes enter their apartment. Alexander had already developed a clear plan of action. He will record this moment on video and then show Eliza. She will not have the slightest chance to justify herself. Everything will have been decided for her. At home, the wife noticed that her husband suddenly began to drink, and indeed, to relieve a little stress, Alexander began to go more and more often after work to the nearest pub and take a couple of liters there for the evening. This new habit of his made Elisa freak out more than usual. Now to the other accusations against her husband, added another married an alcoholic. Very well, what's next? Drinking away the apartment? She snapped every time she saw her husband sitting on the sofa in front of the TV with a mug in his hands. Alexander was doing his best not to shout back at her. It was hard for him each time. After listening to the tirade, he sighed and replied as calmly as possible. It was only a mug of beer. But his wife did not listen to him and stuck to her lie. Almost 3 weeks after installing the camera, Alexander finally saw what he wanted and feared most. Something suddenly, in the middle of the workday, urged him to turn on his phone and check what was going on at home. He could not believe his eyes. Eliza, dressed in a light lace robe, was opening the front door. Alexander jammed the record button video and continued to watch what was going on. His wife let in their apartment. A thin, dark-haired man, Alexander he wasn't familiar with, but he had a rock off his chest. More than anything he was afraid of seeing his own brother. Such a betrayal. A man would not have survived. Elisa and the stranger kissed. Alexander grew disgusted to see it. He covered his eyes through his lashes. Watching what was happening from the view of the camera, both disappeared. He stopped recording. The deluded husband didn't beat around the bush that night. He handed his wife a phone with an interesting video of her on it. Eliza became angry and threw the cell phone to the floor with all her might. She started cursing at him again, angry that he was peeping at her. She was not paying attention to the fact that she herself was in the wrong in this situation in the first place. In defense of herself, she habitually shouted at her husband, trying to protect herself. Makar was not at all surprised when her father told him about the divorce. On the contrary, the young man sympathetically asked once again how he could hold on for so many years. Papa rubbed him on the head. He was glad to have such an understanding son growing up. Now, in the midst of everything else, the young man remained the only reason to rejoice. The apartment in which they all lived together, the man left to his ex-wife. And most importantly, Makar. He did not want the young man to lose his room and move somewhere in his last year, so he made concessions. Alexander himself rented a small apartment in another neighborhood from his son. The man knew that his ex-wife, after the divorce, began to meet openly with his lover. One day, when the car was already at university, he suddenly dropped in a conversation with his father that the lover had hit his mother, taken the money and moved out of their apartment. Alexander wanted to ask his son for details, but the young man said nothing more. And so it turns out that we all think that the grass is greener in someone else's garden. We compare ourselves to others, thinking that this is our personal growth, but we find ourselves in an even worse situation. Eliza had experienced this for herself and now regretted missing out on love with Alexander. The next story is no less interesting. It tells how the wife started fiddling with other men and was punished severely for it by her husband. You have to see it through to the end. Vera and Jackson were married for 5 years. Before that, they had been dating for a couple of years, and then, during a joint vacation at the sea, Vera received the cherished proposal of marriage, and the wife had a large common company of friends from her university days. They loved to get together, travel, vacation, go to concerts. Jackson didn't fit in with that group from the beginning. He wasn't particularly interested in all their parties. He was a pretty private person. Once every few months he would go with his wife to these meetings. But for the most part, she didn't insist either, seeing that he wasn't very comfortable with them. At first Farah was angry at her husband for refusing to go out with her. She called Jackson very boring, but then she realized it was useless to fight. One day, another meeting with friends, to which Jackson, as usual, did not go, came with an unexpected surprise. Their mutual friend Jody, whom they had not seen for many years, since he had gone abroad for work, suddenly visited them and came to the apartment where they were meeting for the weekend. Everyone there was very fond of Jody. He was the soul of the company and always had something funny or interesting to say. And before, when he arranged general meetings, all the attention in the room was always focused on him. It turned out that his contract had expired, and while he was thinking about extending it or not, the man took a vacation and came to his hometown. All night long all his friends asked him lively questions about his life in the European country, about the events he was going through. Vera did not take her eyes off the man during this time that they had not seen each other. He greatly changed, became handsome, pumped up, and did not lose his charm and charisma. Jody was pleased with this reaction from everyone, but especially Vera. Once upon a time they might have started a relationship, but fate had turned out differently. At someone's birthday party, they had a drink, got frank, and found out that they had liked each other for a long time that night many years ago. They lost their heads and woke up together the next morning. Their relationship didn't work out because Jody had already been offered a job at that time. All the bureaucracy had been sorted out and he was leaving for another country the very next week. Vera was upset, but she had nothing to do but move on with her life. Soon she met her future husband, and that crush on Jody gradually began to be forgotten. Jackson. She never talked about what happened between her and her friend. In the evening, when Vera returned home, she told her husband without a word about their friend returning from abroad and suddenly appearing at a meeting. She enthusiastically retold his stories as if she had participated in them herself. There was constant praise for Jody, and in some ways her husband was even hurt by the fire in Vera's eyes. She spoke of him. Jackson interrupted her and made some brief remark about it to Jody. The woman was silent halfway through the sentence, looked resentfully into her husband's eyes, and said nothing more that night than good night before going to bed. A week had passed since the previous events. Vera couldn't get thoughts of Jody out of her head. She kept remembering how much fun she had had with him, how funny he would finish sentences for her as if he could read her mind. Colleagues at work even noticed her absent-mindedness, constantly asking if she was getting enough sleep finally. No longer fighting with herself, Vera decided to write to Jody herself and ask him to meet her. To her delight, he responded fairly quickly and agreed. That evening she texted her husband that she would have to work late so he wouldn't have to wait for her for dinner. They met Jody at a cafe and chatted and laughed for a long time. The woman felt like she had felt years ago again, incredibly light and happy around this man. She didn't need any drinks. She was already drunk from the rush of these feelings, so she reacted with great enthusiasm to the offer to continue the pleasant conversation at Jody's house. But of course, it was not limited to mere conversation. From that day on, Vera lied to her husband that meetings with a group of friends became more frequent, and on weekdays she constantly had extra things to do at work. Since Jackson didn't go to these meetings and didn't check anything out, he didn't suspect anything. And he was in complete ignorance of what was really going on for a while. One day as Jackson was leaving work, he decided to take a short walk to clear his head. He knew his wife would be late again tonight, which meant he had nowhere to hurry. He always had time to heat up supper. The man was walking along, lost in thought when someone called out to him from behind. "Jackson, hi, haven't seen you in a while," Jim said to him. As he came closer, it was one of Vera's friends, who was also an enlarged group. They shook hands and got to talking. "How is Vera? I haven't seen her for a long time either. Is she doing well?" Jim asked. "Don't you see each other every week?" Jackson said perplexedly. "Yes, we haven't seen each other for a long time. Sometimes our schedules don't fit, sometimes we all have things to do." The man grumbled disappointedly. Jackson stared at Jim for several seconds without blinking. He was trying to comprehend what he had just heard. "And when did you all see each other for the last time?" he asked. "Well, about a month and a half ago when Jody came to live with us," Jim answered. Jackson was shocked. Jody was, of course, the friend his wife had been telling him about, and it was after that meeting that her frequent recycling began. Now he was clearly aware of what the delays at work and frequent meetings supposedly with friends were related to. He remembered that his wife was going to meet with the company again this Saturday. He asked Jim if there would be a meeting, and he said nothing of the sort had been planned. Jackson realized this and decided to see where Vera would actually go and catch her red-handed on the appointed day. When his wife left, he used the app on his phone and looked up on the map where his wife was now. They agreed that they would put this app on for emergencies, and the wife was sure her husband would never just open it because he trusted her completely. Half an hour later, Jackson had already pulled up to where his wife was. It was an ordinary apartment building. The man parked in front of one of the driveways and waited. Not even an hour later, his wife came out of the next doorway and started glancing at the phone screen, apparently checking to see where the cap was now. She looked very ruddy. The styling on her head was a little shot. Jackson haunted her from his car. Vera looked in his direction, perplexedly at first, as if not recognizing the car, and then very slowly and unsurely walked toward her spouse. She opened the front passenger door and asked what he was doing here. Jackson calmly asked her to sit down. His wife silently obeyed him, and for half a minute they sat in silence. Vera, sensing the growing tension, could not stand it and asked what is going on. The man said that he knew everything. He knew that there was no meeting and suggested that Vera should tell him where and with whom she was. Vera started to act like a victim who didn't understand. But Jackson had already lost all confidence in her. He yelled at her and she finally confessed that she was with Jody. Her husband silently started the car and drove off. Vera asked with fear in her eyes where they were going. Jackson replied that he was going to pack her things because after that he wouldn't live with her for a day. The divorce was swift. Jackson was depressed and tried his best not to think about his betrayed wife anymore, and Vera herself was not too upset by what happened. She continued to date Jody just now. She could not hide in her head. She had already fantasized about a strong and long relationship with her lover. Except she hadn't considered that Jody had told everyone at the first meeting that he was back here for a while. When she found out that she had a week left before she left, she said she was ready to go with him to the end of the world. The woman expected the man to help her with all the tickets and the visa. But Jody wasn't the kind of man who would just pay a woman for nothing. And Vera herself simply did not have that kind of money. She had forgotten that it wasn't her husband who could just buy or pay for something for her. For a long time, the woman had been in love with Jody, corresponded with him a lot. But when she found out that he had a steady girlfriend in the country where he lived, her heart broke. and now she was alone with her problems. The realization came that she had ruined everything. A black sadness came over her like a blanket, from which there seemed to be no way out. Vera threw herself headlong into her work so that she wouldn't feel alone most of the day, but every night she was alone with her broken heart. That's the story. Share in the comments what you think about this situation and the behavior of the. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss out on our next adventure. It all started with a 6-year relationship, filled with its ups and downs. But then, a new friendship blossomed, and things took an unexpected turn. As our narrator navigates through feelings of attraction and complex connections, you won't believe where this story leads. Stay tuned, because there's more to come. I've been in a relationship for 6 years, and like any romantic relationship, we've had our ups and downs. 5 years ago, I met a girl with whom I became very close friends. We started to get to know each other well and became best friends. Initially, there was no attraction between us, as she was already in a relationship at the time. Over the years, we strangely started to feel drawn to each other, mainly on a physical level. We never discussed it, but our moments together as friends were telling. For instance, even when we were still in relationships with other people, we'd sometimes share a bed after a night out, cuddling before falling asleep, without ever kissing. We shared every detail of our lives, even our sexual experiences with our partners, and so on. While I still had a loving relationship with my girlfriend, her relationship with her boyfriend deteriorated, and she was dumped about 8 to 9 months ago. Things started to get more complicated. 6 months ago, after a night out, we slept at her place again, in the same bed. We were both quite intoxicated, and it happened. We started kissing, first gently and then passionately. We were getting quite heated, but she didn't want to take it further. As for my feelings, was I embarrassed? I'm not sure. Did I regret it? I can't say. Was I happy? Yes, even though I never thought I would cross that line with her. We talked about what happened, and at that point, we had no romantic feelings for each other. 4 months ago, I decided to break up with my girlfriend because my feelings were diminishing. On top of that, there were issues with her family, and our relationship was becoming less and less satisfying. I realized she didn't mean as much to me anymore, and I was clearly falling out of love. This decision had nothing to do with my best friend. My girlfriend didn't see the breakup coming, it hit her hard. The day after I broke up with my girlfriend, I had a night out with my best friend, and this time, it led to intimacy. We went all the way. We were certainly under the influence of alcohol, but we made love for hours. It was amazing. Aside from the physical attraction, there were still no romantic feelings between us. After several discussions, we decided to continue having a physical relationship. It was always fantastic. Even during our nights out, she could kiss other guys or see other people, and I didn't care, and the same went for her. We clearly stated that there would be no romantic attachment. We would be honest, enjoy our time together, have fun, and that's it. However, unintentionally, we found ourselves spending most of our time at each other's places, continuing our physical relationship. You begin to develop some attachment, especially when you already have a strong friendship. A few days after breaking up with my girlfriend, I had been intimate with my best friend several times. Then I reconnected with my ex-girlfriend, the one I broke up with a few days ago, and we became intimate again, once, twice, 3 times. We started discussing our past relationship and whether it was possible to rebuild it. 2 months after breaking up with her, I went back to her and proposed that we try to start over. She was thrilled, and everything seemed to be going well on her end. I was willing to give it another shot, but I still had doubts. We had a shared apartment, but her parents lived in the same town. To enjoy our time apart and the moments we were together, we decided to see each other less often and not rush things. We used to spend about 3 nights a week together. I had an agreement with my best friend that if I got back together with my girlfriend, we wouldn't be intimate anymore. However, that agreement was not honored, and shortly after getting back with my girlfriend, we started being intimate again, and it became more frequent. For the past month and a half, my girlfriend has been at my place about 3 times a week, and I go to my best friend's place 3 to 4 times a week. Of course, my girlfriend is completely unaware of all this. We are very discreet, and she has no idea. Now, there is a problem, but it seems to be just on my end. I'm starting to develop strong feelings for my best friend and experiencing love. When we're together, we fall asleep in each other's arms. I've introduced her to sexual pleasures she had never experienced before. In short, about 10 days ago, I told her that I was really falling for her and that I was going crazy about her. We discussed it over Messenger, and her response was quite brief. It's kind of normal that you're developing feelings since we spend a lot of time together, and things are going well. You should know something about her, she never talks about her feelings, it's impossible to know what she thinks emotionally, and she has never been able to say, I love you, to any of her exes, even though she loved them. She's very closed off when it comes to emotions. In the past 10 days, I've been making it clear through my actions that I'm starting to really like her and develop romantic feelings, like cuddling and kissing often, which used to be more focused on the physical aspect. She didn't seem to mind. Yesterday, we talked again over Messenger, and I admitted that I was starting to love her. At the same time, it seems somewhat natural to me. It's indeed a very peculiar relationship we have. She then asked me if I wanted to see each other less often and have less intimacy, to which I replied, no, I want to keep seeing you, all the time, even more. Then, during our conversation, I asked her if she would be open to the idea of being in a relationship in the future, maybe in a few months. She responded, it will be a no, I don't want to be in a relationship right away, and I don't want to risk losing our friendship. It's all very complicated. In summary, I love 2 women. One with whom I'm trying to rebuild a relationship, and the other is my best friend, who doesn't want to be with me if I leave my girlfriend. To make matters worse, in January, I'm going on vacation with my best friend and her best friend for 10 days. Hell, do you think it's possible for me to rekindle the same love I had with my girlfriend a few years ago? Do you think I can convince my best friend to be in a relationship with me? If so, how? More distance, reducing pleasurable activities, etc. If she had said yes, I would be with her now, and I probably would have broken up with my girlfriend. Do you think I should continue to be with both of them at the same time? I think the answer to that would be a resounding no. I never thought that a best friend's relationship would raise so many questions, and I never thought I would be this lost in my love life. Best friend relationships are always a never-ending mess, it seems. Most people who are in love with their best friends generally have a hard time making the first move. Here, it's the opposite, the first move has definitely been made. But she doesn't want a serious relationship, especially not with me, for fear of losing our friendship. But hold on a second. I want to hear from you. Have you ever found yourself in a complex relationship? Share your experiences in the comments below, and let's have a conversation. Now, let's continue with our next story. Now, let's shift gears to our second story, where a teenager's life takes an unexpected turn. Relationships evolve, identities shift, and hearts are on the line. Get ready for a tale of self-discovery and first loves that will leave you rooting for our narrator. Hello, I'm 17 years old. When I started 10th grade, I met several girls, 3 whom I'll name X, Y, and Z, who completely transformed me. Under their influence, I had romantic relationships with 2 girls. Y and Z, I knew I was straight, but I wanted to try to be like them. I spent a year in X's class and considered her my best friend. During the summer after 10th grade, I started doing some reckless things, going to parties, staying out all night, camping. You name it. I drank excessively each time. The same scenario played out. I'd drink, my friends would drink, we'd get drunk, and we'd all kiss each other. I played along because these 3 girls were lesbians and had a bit of a soft spot for me. So, I kissed them all the time. During that summer, I reconnected with an old acquaintance, and we spent a lot of time together. Since my dad worked late, she often came over in the evenings for us to chat and have some fun. However, I suggested that we have a drink one evening, and things took a wrong turn. We ended up sleeping together. At the time, it made me laugh more than anything else, and we didn't really care because we had nothing to lose, or gain, for that matter. So, we saw each other again, drank some more, and slept together again. It was always the same. This continued until the day before the start of 11th grade and on New Year's Eve of the following year. Time passed, and I gradually distanced myself from these girls, especially after X and Y got into a long-term relationship, which I didn't handle well because I had feelings for Y, X, Y, and Z completely cut me out of their lives, and I did the same. I sought refuge in the books at the school library, where I felt so comfortable. I felt like a good, innocent girl who had nothing to be ashamed of. I did some real introspection on myself, my way of thinking, and how I saw things because I was feeling a bit depressed. I wasn't the same reckless fool I had been before. I stayed alone for 4 months, then February came and changed everything. I ran into a boy who completely shook me. I didn't know who he was or his name, but one thing was clear. I wanted him all to myself. At that very moment, as if by chance, they resurfaced, X, Y, Z, Z, using Y's birthday as an excuse for us all to get together, started reaching out to me. Naive and kind-hearted as I was, I told them about this boy. Coincidentally, he was often in the same place as these girls because they smoked, and so did he. They all hung out at the smoker's corner at my school. Z took advantage of this and talked to the boy, telling him that her friend was interested. As a result, I started showing up at the smoker's corner, where he couldn't take his eyes off me, and I couldn't take mine off him. I went there to talk things out with X and forgive her for dating my ex-girlfriend whom I still had feelings for. For days past, he messaged me on Instagram over the weekend. We quickly got to know each other, and we kissed 2 days later. This, by the way, officially marked the start of our relationship. It happened really fast, but it was definitely love at first sight. Since that day, we've been together for 8 months, inseparable, and I'd even say, very much in love. But I don't mind it at all, quite the opposite. I cherish the bond we share, and all the wonderful moments we've had and continue to have. However, since 9th grade, I've been talking to a boy on. We chatted as just good friends, but most of the time we talked about intimate matters. Not because we wanted to sleep together or anything, just because we found it funny. Of course, we had sent each other some suggestive photos a few times. Many of those times, I was drunk with the girl I slept with. And even while being with my boyfriend. Friend. However, I wasn't aware that it was considered cheating in the truest sense because, for me, nothing would ever happen, and that was clear to both of us. Unfortunately, this girl, by identifying herself in all the photos on that boy's Instagram, sort of blew her cover. Because he had blocked me after he started dating her, which irritated me. So, I vented about it to this girl on Instagram. But my boyfriend saw the entire conversation, and he realized I had cheated on him. It was the worst moment of my life. I had really hurt him. He is my first love, and I am his. I started to mess things up. But with some time, I managed to make it up to him. He knew he was going to forgive me, he just wanted to see effort and proof on my part to make amends. That's what I did, and recently he made a beautiful declaration, explaining that he had forgiven and that he's madly in love, wanting to live with me, etc. It really touched him. I felt so proud to have bounced back, to have made us stronger. But, there's a but, yes. It had been ages since I had talked to that girl I slept with, but besides that, we were really good friends. We didn't just sleep together. So, I suggested that we spend an afternoon together, just to talk and catch up. However, she brought cookies, beers, cigarettes. I don't smoke, but this time I did. After drinking the beer, we wanted more, so we drank some stronger alcohol, and then some more, and more, until we were completely wasted. She really wanted to kiss me, and we ended up sitting together, looking at each other on a chair. She came up with all sorts of arguments to convince me to sleep with her, but I wanted to stick to my principles, to be serious. So, I told her we should go outside to have some fun and all, but she didn't want to. She started jumping on me and I let it happen. Right after, we both regretted it. But I regretted it more because I had already made a mistake. She's also in a relationship, and now it's 5 in the morning and I can't sleep at all. I called my boyfriend before taking a shower. We talked normally, I didn't say anything to him, everything was going really well, and we both promised not to tell our partners anything and to stop seeing each other, to cut off all ties clearly. But now, I'm afraid of two things. That when I'm intimate with my boyfriend, I'll have a breakdown and confess everything, or that I won't care, which would mean that I'm really a terrible person, to put it frankly. So, I don't know what to do, because sooner or later, he'll find out. And then, I already have too many things weighing on my conscience. Too many times when I wasn't clear enough with him or I lied. He has absolutely nothing to blame himself for, I'm just not the right girl for him, and I'm considering breaking up with him because, well, I can't face it, and I believe he deserves much better than this. And tonight, I'm really realizing that. In the end, my first, serious, relationship, my first love. I've completely ruined it, I've hurt him a lot, and I'm still hurting him. I've already ruined half of our relationship, all the magic of the beginning by talking to another boy. He told me that he doesn't see our beginnings as magical as they once were. And that includes our first time, I imagine. I feel really awful as a person. I almost want to change schools because I'm so ashamed. I'm ashamed of the person I've become. I would love to be someone else. Someone trustworthy, clear in what she does, not a liar or anything. Someone with unwavering loyalty, but no, I'm not like that, I'm not saying I'll never be, but at least up until now, I'm not. I'm not sure if I should tell him, if I should break up with him, because deep down, if I tell him and he doesn't leave me, I won't be able to cope, because guilt is something I really struggle with. So, I'm completely lost right now. Alright, folks, before we wrap up, let's take a moment to reflect on these incredible stories. They remind us that love and self-discovery often take unexpected paths. Sometimes, we find ourselves in situations we never imagined, but it's all part of the journey. Well, that's a wrap for today. I hope you enjoyed these two remarkable stories as much as I did. Don't forget to hit that like button if you want to see more content like this. And of course, subscribe and ring that notification bell so you never miss out on our next adventure. Thank you all for tuning in. Until next time, remember, love comes in many forms, and our journeys are what make us who we are. Take care, and see you in the next. This all started 7 years ago, a time that feels both distant and painfully close. I was 40 then, my wife 42, and our lives seemed to mirror those of thousands of others, ordinary, mundane, but comfortable. Our 19-year-old son was the epitome of what we had built together over our 20-year marriage. My career in the restaurant industry was demanding, with late hours and work on weekends and holidays, but it was a sacrifice I thought was necessary for our family. It was my cousin, 15 years younger than me, who inadvertently shattered the facade of my seemingly stable life. He was a regular in the local nightlife scene, and one night, he saw someone who looked uncannily like my wife in a nightclub, dancing intimately with a man who was visibly younger. He followed them out of a mix of concern and disbelief, capturing their moments together on his phone. The night he saw them, I was working late at a banquet, not returning home until the early hours of the morning. My wife came back even later, at 3:30 a.m., with an excuse that she was out with friends, filling the void of my absence. That the next day, my cousin showed me the pictures he had taken. The grainy images were enough to confirm my worst fears, my wife, in another man's embrace. Confronting her led to denials that crumbled as soon as I showed her the pictures. Her tears and pleas for forgiveness did little to soothe the betrayal. She confessed to feeling lonely due to my long hours at work and admitted that her relationship with this man had been going on for a month. They had been intimate multiple times. How many, she wouldn't say. My world was spinning out of control, and it culminated in a physical confrontation when the man she was involved with showed up at our house, thinking I was at work. Recognizing him from the photos, I acted on impulse, driven by a cocktail of hurt, betrayal, and rage. This altercation led to legal consequences for me, a blemish in my life that, while regrettable, felt like a necessary release of pent-up fury. I couldn't forgive her. I declared our marriage over, and within days, I began the process of divorce. The aftermath was a blur of emotions. My son, now forced to grapple with the fracture of his family, sided with me. He expressed his disappointment and anger towards his mother, unable to reconcile the image of the woman he knew with her actions. In my state of emotional turmoil, I found solace in a colleague, younger than me, who became an unexpected confidant. As I poured out my anguish and anger, she offered support and understanding. Before the ink was dry on my divorce papers, I had fallen into a relationship with her and moved in together. It was a decision driven more by impulse and a desire to inflict some sort of pain on my ex-wife rather than a genuine pursuit of happiness. 7 years have passed since then, and the scars of that betrayal still linger. My relationship with my colleague has endured against all odds, but it's a relationship marred by my inability to fully trust and commit. The thought of remarriage is unthinkable. The specter of my past haunts every moment of intimacy and trust. The story of my ex-wife's affair, and my subsequent actions, have become a cautionary tale I reflect on often. I read about couples who have managed to rebuild after infidelity, and I feel a mix of envy and disbelief. How could they move past such betrayal? The very thought of my wife with another man still stirs a visceral reaction in me, a combination of revulsion and anger. I recognize now that my actions, both in response to the affair and in my subsequent relationship, were influenced by a deep-seated pain and a desire to regain control. The legal troubles, the strain on my relationship with my son, and the challenges in my new partnership are constant reminders of that turbulent period. In these 7 years, I've learned hard lessons about trust, forgiveness, and the complexities of human relationships. While I found a semblance of stability, the journey has been marked by introspection and, at times, regret. The shadow of my past decisions looms large, a stark reminder of the fragility of trust and the deep wounds that betrayal can inflict. As I navigate my current relationship, I am constantly aware of the barriers I've erected around myself. The fear of being hurt again dictates my actions and often causes tension with my partner. She has been patient, understanding, but the specter of my past experiences casts a long shadow over our relationship. I've come to understand that the betrayal I experienced was not just about the physical act of infidelity, but also about the shattering of trust and the breaking of a bond that I thought was unbreakable. The experience has changed me fundamentally, making me question the very essence of love and commitment. Now, looking back, I wonder if there could have been a different path. Could I have been more forgiving? Could our marriage have been saved with counseling and time? These questions linger, but the answers are as elusive as the peace I've sought since that fateful discovery 7 years ago. In these years, I've also come to grapple with my own imperfections and the role they may have played in the unraveling of my marriage. The long hours at work, the lack of communication, and perhaps the distance that had crept in between us, were these factors in my wife's decision to seek solace elsewhere? I ponder these questions, but the answers bring little solace. As I move forward, I carry with me the lessons learned from that painful chapter of my life. Trust, once broken, is not easily mended, and the scars of betrayal are long-lasting. But I also hold on to a hope that, with time and reflection, I can find a way to trust again, to love without the fear of being hurt, and to build a future that is not overshadowed by the past. Thank you for joining us for the first story. And guess what? We've got another exciting story for you. Before we jump in, a like and a subscribe would go a long way in keeping these engaging stories coming your way. Now, let's dive into the next story. Story number 2. I have been in a relationship for 15 years and am a mother to a lovely 7-year-old child. Throughout these years with my partner, I had idealized our relationship, thinking it was perfect, believing he was different from other men who had hurt me in the past. I thought our relationship was cloudless, based on trust, respect, and above all, love. I began to feel my husband drifting away. For several months, he had been taking weekly business trips abroad, or so he said. While away, he seemed madly in love, sending me loving messages, expressing how much he missed me and couldn't wait to be back with us. However, upon his return, he would revert to being glued to his phone, even taking it with him to the bathroom. I expressed my concerns numerous times: his lack of attention in our daily life, his diminishing affection. He reassured me that he was seeing no one else, attributing his behavior to work fatigue and accusing me of making a fuss over nothing. Yet, the intimacy in our relationship began to wane. He started avoiding physical closeness, making excuses to delay moments of intimacy. Our sexual and romantic life continued to deteriorate due to the monotony of family life, his absence, and lack of attention. I had promised myself not to be suspicious or to snoop, but while on vacation, his unacceptable behavior, spending time on his phone outside before coming to bed, taking selfies alone, constantly sighing despite having everything one could dream of: wealth, a healthy family, friends, made it difficult. He should have been more than happy, but instead, he did nothing but complain since our arrival. Then, the inevitable happened. While changing a song on his phone, I discovered a message to a friend about his intention to leave me. This led to a huge argument. He left our vacation spot, abandoning me and our son. However, he returned after 24 hours, explaining that our daily life no longer suited him, that he was bored, and that he no longer desired me. We promised to make more effort and communicate better. Things seemed to improve, but I remained vigilant. One night, after a seemingly perfect romantic evening, he received a message at 4 a.m. Seeing him fast asleep, I was overcome with doubt and checked his phone. The message read, "My love?" Who would message him like this at such an hour? Pretending to be him, I found out it was from his mistress. Not a one-night stand, but a full-fledged affair with regular meetings, messages, calls, and photos for many months. I confronted her, and she confessed everything: their meetings at her hotel for months, her feelings for him, his claim that he was divorced. That night, my world collapsed. The man I loved above all else had betrayed me. Since then, it has been a nightmare of constant arguments. I've thought about it, and if he could swear it was over, I'd make a tremendous effort to move past this for the love I have for him and our son, for our 15 years together, and all that we've built. I thought that maybe we could start from scratch, addressing the problems in our relationship and moving forward. Our sexual desire has surprisingly reignited. We've never been as intimate as we are now. I know he desires me, and that's wonderful. We oscillate between love and hate, sadness and guilt, a desire to rebuild and a desire to throw it all away. The problem is, he can't bring himself to say he loves me. He won't promise not to see her again. Despite his future business trips and the likelihood of meeting her again, I have lost all trust in him. Despite his assurances that late-night messages are from friends, I remain suspicious. He says he values our life together but isn't sure if he has romantic feelings, beyond desire, for me. He can't assure me he won't see her again or explain his feelings for her. He just says he doesn't envision a serious future with her. But does that mean he'll continue to cheat? To lie? How can I ever trust him again? I genuinely love him, but I can't continue to be blind to reality. I think I deserve someone who makes me laugh, not cry, someone who truly loves me and wants to be with me. I'm truly lost and don't know what to expect from sharing this story. What would you do in my place? Stay and hope his feelings return, or leave with our 7-year-old son? Story number 3. I am a 37-year-old who, a year ago, had a fateful encounter that dramatically changed my life. I met a man who was 20 years my senior, and for me, it was an instant and overwhelming case of love at first sight. Before meeting him, I had endured a long spell of loneliness. I had been single for many years, following 2 significant relationships in my past. Each of these relationships had lasted a few years, but they ended in heartbreak and betrayal, as I was cheated on in both. The impact of these betrayals was profound and long-lasting. To me, infidelity represented the ultimate breach of trust, a complete lack of respect and disregard for my emotions. The aftermath of each relationship left me grappling with deep-seated depression. I found myself reliant on antidepressants and anxiolytics to cope with my day-to-day life. In addition to these personal struggles, I also faced a severe bout of depression linked to stress at work, which necessitated a 21-day hospitalization. During these tumultuous times, I even attempted suicide twice, feeling utterly lost and despondent. The moment I met this man a year ago was unexpected and occurred during a mundane activity, while doing my grocery shopping. At that point in my life, I had resigned myself to the possibility of being alone forever. But when I met him, everything changed. I felt a connection that was both immediate and intense. Despite the fears and insecurities stemming from my past experiences, I couldn't help but let down my guard. I opened my heart to him, offering him all the love and trust that I thought I had forever lost in men. However, the bliss of this new relationship was short-lived. Since January, a complicated situation emerged. A man who had known my partner before I did, who was married to a woman he occasionally saw, started pursuing him aggressively. In an attempt to protect our relationship, I reached out to this man, asking him to respect our partnership and leave us in peace. I emphasized that my partner had moved on and underscored my strong commitment to fidelity and the sanctity of our relationship. But when this man contacted my partner, I was the one who ended up being reprimanded, a twist that left me feeling both hurt and misunderstood. Things took a turn for the worse about a week ago. I stumbled upon a discovery on my partner's iPad. He had been exchanging sexually explicit messages with this man. These weren't just fleeting conversations, they involved planning meetings during his work hours at the store. This man even sent explicit videos and photos. I confronted my partner, who brushed it off as a meaningless error, claiming that he only intended to meet for coffee to end the ongoing communication. I wanted to believe him, desperately clinging to the love I felt, but doubts and fears clouded my mind. To add to the complexity, since April, another man, this one married to a husband, started showing an unsettling interest in my partner. This man frequently visited his store, making overt sexual propositions and eventually giving him his phone number. My partner assured me that he discarded the number, but I never saw any proof of this. Anger and frustration boiled inside me, and I contemplated confronting this man's husband, but ultimately, I held back. My partner warned me that such an action could ruin a family, yet it seemed the turmoil in our own relationship was considered less significant. The ongoing ambiguity in my partner's interactions with these men is deeply troubling. He seems reluctant to firmly reject their advances or to openly declare his commitment to our relationship. This reluctance is in stark contrast to my own views on fidelity and the importance of transparency in a relationship. He is fully aware of how much his actions hurt me, yet nothing seems to change. In spite of the tumultuous nature of our relationship, I find myself unable to let go. I recognize that he is the person I want to be with, despite the pain and anxiety his actions cause me. He is, in many ways, the best thing that has happened to me. My life outside of our relationship feels hollow. I have lost touch with friends, my family relationships are strained, and my job brings me little satisfaction. The only time I feel content and whole is when I am with him. Yet, even in these moments, happiness is overshadowed by my fears of betrayal and abandonment. The thought of going through another heartbreak feels unbearable, and I worry that it might push me back into the depths of depression, possibly necessitating an increase in my medication. I long for a simple, peaceful life with him, free from the complexities and heartaches that plague our relationship. The fact that he engages in these inappropriate exchanges with other men repulses me. I often wonder if he thinks of me at all when he's sending those messages, while all I do is eagerly wait for his texts and think about him constantly. My nights are plagued by insomnia, and I find myself crying often, overwhelmed by the fear of losing him. Remember, if you enjoyed today's episode, don't hesitate to share it with your friends, family, and fellow adventurers in the YouTubeverse. As always, your comments and feedback mean the world to us, so keep those discussions going down below. And if you have a story, topic you'd love to see featured on the show, drop it in the comments. My husband and I have 2 daughters, Erica, 23, and Sarah, 25. Much to my disappointment, they've never gotten along. Even as kids, they were always fighting. I'd always hoped they would grow out of it, but it never happened. I tried very hard to encourage them to grow together, as it's always my wish for them to be best friends and take care of each other when I'm gone. Unfortunately, nothing worked, and they seemed bent on hating each other. Some backstory. When Sarah moved out for college, she stopped talking to Erica entirely. This seemed really harsh to me, and I told her that. During this time, I grew closer with Erica as she was still at home, and Sarah seemed to want nothing to do with us. We were both hurt by Sarah's actions. When Erica went to college, Sarah appeared to make an effort to get along with her, and I was excited, but something happened. Sarah said that Erica was bullying her and blocked her on her phone. Erica told me that Sarah had blocked her, so I texted Sarah demanding to know why. Sarah said that Erica was name-calling her and blowing up her phone. I told Sarah she needed to get over it, because family is family, and you can't just block family for no reason. It seemed very immature to me, and I was very annoyed. It's been about 2 years, and Sarah hasn't had a relationship with Erica since. Every time I see Sarah, I try to remind her that Erica loves her and tell her about the realities of the situation, that Sarah's successful, and Erica just gets jealous sometimes. But unfortunately, Sarah always seems upset when I bring up Erica and gets moody. Sarah's now getting married. At Sarah's engagement party, to which Erica was not invited, which disappointed me, I told Sarah that Erica was happy for her, but it was hard for her to have her sister be successful like this. Sarah seemed annoyed and brushed me off. Since the party, I've been trying to get a straight answer from Sarah about whether Erica's invited to the wedding. I brought it up a few times when Sarah talked about the wedding, and she ignored me. Eventually, she snapped at me and said that she hadn't had a relationship with Erica in many years, and she didn't know, quote, why you would expect her to be there. I was horrified. I believe Sarah's childish, vengeful antics have gone too far. You just don't treat family like this. Not inviting them to your wedding? My heart is broken, as I want them to care for each other, and I don't know why they refuse to do so. I want nothing to do with the wedding at this point. I'll attend, but I have no desire to help a daughter who treats family like this. I feel like Sarah's just asking me to pick between her and her sister, and I want nothing to do with it. My husband thinks I might be being a little harsh, but Erica agrees with my decision. Am I the idiot for refusing to pick between my daughters and not supporting my oldest decision not to invite her sister to the wedding? You are the idiot. Blocking family for no reason? She gave you a very detailed list of reasons. Why are you always making excuses for one child and brushing off all the issues of your other one? You often mention that you've encouraged your older daughter to be more respectful. However, you've mentioned exactly 0 times you've corrected your younger daughter's behavior or expected her to be nicer to her sister. Why is that? It's so pathetic that OP is playing dumb about not understanding why Sarah hates Erica. There's willful ignorance and there's denial. This is definitely the latter. She says she doesn't want to get involved in their fights, but she really means that she refused to do her job as a parent and expected sheer DNA to fix all relationship problems. Now that she's reaping what she sowed, she's going all surprise Pikachu face. Makes me wonder what other issues the girls must have due to her ill-fit parenting. Wait, at Sarah's engagement party, rather than congratulating her, you told her it was hard for Erica to see her be successful? And you don't understand why you're the idiot. Erica seems to be your golden child for whatever reason. You need to butt out because your favoritism is not helping and will only push Sarah away from you. Yeah, OP is blaming Sarah for being more successful than Erica. That is a very bizarre take on the situation. Lady, it sounds like you're completely blind to your baby's faults and you blame all the friction on the old one who should know better. But your younger daughter is persistently bratty and entitled and you enabled this all the way. I wouldn't bet on your older daughter being desperately upset if you decided not to support the wedding. She's had no support from you so far in life, so why change now? I, 45 male, have a daughter, teen Amy, and my wife, Amy's stepmother, 40, Diane, has recently taken issue with Amy. Diane does not respect Amy's privacy and has recently done a lot to invade it. She constantly barges into Amy's room and demands to check her phone frequently. I've told Diane she can't do this without asking Amy or me first, but she says she's as much Amy's mother as I am her father. 2 days ago, Diane went into Amy's room when she was at school and looked through Amy's diary. Her diary has a lock on it and was hidden, so I'm not sure how Diane got into it. When I returned from work, I found Amy in tears and my wife screaming at her, calling her disgusting names. When she saw me, she ran over to me, telling me that she'd read Amy's diary and found out she was gay and calling her names. I shouted at Diane for invading Amy's space because she knows teenagers need privacy and that her diary is necessary for her recovery. The therapist recommended she write down her feelings to help her anxiety. I got very angry, but Diane told me I should kick Amy out or send her to a conversion therapy course. I told her to get out, and after I threatened to call the police, she left. I'm receiving many calls from the family saying Diane is worried about Amy's future. I told them Diane was disgusting. Diane is very angry with me and told me she wants to take a break. Did I escalate the situation by kicking her out? Am I the idiot? Diane's stuff would be packed in on the front porch by the time the date was done if it was me. Diane is a witch, plain and simple. She's proven that she doesn't respect your position as husband or father. She certainly doesn't respect your daughter and her boundaries. She's shown her true colors by using homophobic slurs regarding your daughter and thinks there's something wrong with Amy. Not the idiot OP. You absolutely did the right thing. You are an incredible dad and stood by your daughter. Kicking Diane out is step 1 and asking for a divorce is step 2. I don't think divorce should be invoked lightly, but dude, come on. Diane sounds like an awful person and you have to protect your daughter. I mean, conversion therapy? But how long has she been invading Amy's privacy? It sounds like this isn't the first time she's busted into Amy's diary. I wonder how many under-the-radar type things she's done, or said to or directed at your daughter over the years. Continue to protect your child at all costs. Get rid of that woman immediately. I cannot emphasize enough how much that experience will affect your daughter. I used to write about my late mom to cope with her loss and later found out that my grandma would go through my room while I was gone and go through my journals. I'm still angry at my dad for not doing more about it and I haven't been able to write about my feelings in the same way since. For the last 6 months, my 25 female girlfriend, Molly, 26, started with a joke that I've already made clear that I don't like. It consists of her saying no quickly to anything I ask. I ask her to get a glass of water for me. She says no and after 1 minute, I'm almost getting up. She says she's joking and gets some water. I ask her to wash dishes. She says no. I say I love you, but she says no. I ask her to take her clothes. She says no. Everything is joking and after the 30 seconds to a minute, she does it, but she's addicted to saying no first. I've already made it clear several times that I don't like it, even more so with the I love you. She's the only person I can say that to, so it's special to me and there are serious things that I need her to answer seriously, and if she says no to everything jokingly, I can't tell when she's saying a real no. It's already happened. I keep saying this is boring and I don't like it. She stops doing it and goes back to doing it after a week. Finally, after a brief discussion, because she played this prank in front of our friends, me asking, "Love, can you get me some medicine?" and she with no, but kidding, she stopped doing it for 1 month. Yesterday, we welcomed my parents, in-laws and our 2 best friends to our house. Everyone knew that I was gonna propose to her and I called them because we had always planned this proposal with our loved ones attending, participating in this special day. I asked her to marry me and she said a quick no and I was so grumpy and panicked and upset, everyone looking in shock for 30 seconds for her to laugh and say she was joking, finally saying yes. I was so embarrassed and disappointed. I put the ring box back in and said I'd take it out to cool off. I didn't even let her say anything. She kept texting me, no answering calls, saying it was just a joke and I knew she always did that. She said that I left a difficult situation in the house because it was obvious that I had given up on proposing and did it in front of my parents and my in-laws. She stressed that I made the situation uncomfortable because of a silly joke, while I slept in a hotel and I'm still in it. My parents supported me, but my in-laws called me an idiot for giving up on proposing, disproportionately humiliating their daughter. I just really think there's time for jokes and that moment wasn't clear. She knew I didn't like it and decided to do it anyway. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Your girlfriend just learned a much-needed lesson on why you don't joke and say no when you mean yes. And you're not making the situation uncomfortable because of a silly joke, she is. She knows you don't like it and honestly, who would? That would annoy the crap out of most people, but she did it anyway. What's next? Is she gonna say no during your ceremony jokingly? This whole thing, saying no immediately, was a thing kids did in the 90s. I remember it because I was a kid in the 90s. You would be like, no, kidding, and then laugh because you were single digits old. How is an adult doing this and why do they think it's funny? Not the idiot, but why would you sign up for this permanently? Seriously, I would overthink this whole relationship. Girlfriend will not change. Girlfriend does not respect your boundaries and feelings. She's shown you who she is, believe her. Then move on and find someone who does. Out of all the things that are wrong from her side, one that stands out to me the most is that afterward, she still puts the blame on you and doesn't even apologize. If you see that your partner is hurt by something you did, yes, even a joke, any well-adjusted human being would apologize. Also, if other people aren't laughing, I wouldn't call it a joke. And you're correct to think there's a time and a place for jokes. I can imagine how hurtful and embarrassing it was to hear the no to your proposal in front of your family. Such an idiot move. I, teen female, will admit I have and always will have a close relationship with my mom, 40. She's truly a fantastic woman. She has a great job and is honestly beautiful. Yet about a year ago, we found out my dad, 42, is having an affair with a woman who's now 26. She's only 10 years older than me. She and I have less of an age gap than my dad and she does. Even though upset, my mom has never trash-talked my dad. I'm so upset though. It would have been one thing for him to ask for a divorce. Instead, he cheated with someone much younger than him. He and his affair moved out about 2 hours away. I've seen him about 5 times since this happened a year ago. I act pleasant when I see them, but things are awkward and my dad's and my relationship is clearly strained. So my dad's affair partner's pregnant. He called me yesterday and asked if I wanted to attend the gender reveal party next weekend. I told him no. He asked why. I said I didn't want to talk about it. He kept pushing me, saying how the baby would be my little sibling. Finally, I got annoyed and went off. I told him how it would have been one thing for him to get a divorce from my mom, but he didn't have the guts for that. So instead, you have an affair. So no, I'm not gonna accept your little affair baby as a sibling. He called me an immature brat. He later texted my mom complaining about how immature I am and how I need to grow up and accept that, his mistress name, and the baby will be a part of my family. Am I the idiot? Oh, wow. He has a lot of nerve to claim that you're immature, seeing as he had an affair with someone closer to your age than his. What exactly did he think was gonna happen? Not the idiot. He didn't just cheat on your mother. He cheated on you too. He doesn't get to call you an immature brat when he chooses intimacy over you. He's only visited you 5 times and he lives only 2 hours away. What is he, British? My sister lives 2 hours away and we hang out at least once a month for a full, fun weekend. Even if you wanted to accept your new half-sibling, you'd undoubtedly see them less since your dad barely makes an effort to see you anyways and you're only about 2 years shy of becoming an adult. You don't have time to have a relationship with them, especially not how your dad made it. OP, if your father's anything like mine, which, based on the cheating and calling you a brat, sounds like he is, you will be asked to babysit for free whenever you're around. This child will be born soon before you legally become an adult. You're not gonna have any relationship with your father's new family that you don't choose, and it sounds like you're not interested in having him in your life. That's perfectly fine. Can I make a suggestion? I know you're upset, but I highly recommend learning to laugh at him. LOL, he thinks you want a relationship with him when he's barely tried? LOL, he thinks you want the woman he cheated with in your life? LOL, LOL, LOL. He thinks you give a darn about his affair, baby? What a joke. Your dad's a joke. Treat him like one. Get therapy for yourself to work through the pain, but laugh in that man's face because he is hilarious for thinking he's still got any influence over you after this. My 29 female partner, J, 31 male, wants me to include his best friend, H, 36 female, as a bridesmaid in our wedding. H and I used to get along a couple of years ago, but she told J that she didn't like me a while back. I've never been rude to H and I'm always polite and civil when she's over, especially for Jay's sake because I know that H is one of Jay's closest friends. I still talk to her and say hi and bye, but I don't class her as a friend, especially when she's polite to me but'll talk about me, saying how she doesn't like me behind my back. Jay and I recently got engaged and we're currently fighting because he wants H to be a bridesmaid at our wedding, but I don't want her to be. I don't want someone to input opinion and be part of my hen's night, especially if she doesn't like me because I want our wedding and the time leading up to it to be drama-free and I know it'll just cause drama having someone who doesn't like me as part of my bride's party. Jay keeps insisting on getting H's opinions and not my friends, who I want as a part of my wedding party, and he keeps getting angry and treating me like I'm the idiot for this. I've told Jay that if he wants her opinion to make her part of his wedding party, he won't. I then said we could possibly wait until closer to the wedding date to see if H and I become friends again, but I honestly don't feel as if that'll happen. I am starting to feel a bit like an idiot because it is his wedding and maybe I should just put up with it for his sake. So, am I the idiot? Not the idiot, but it sounds like Jay values H's feelings more than he does yours. Are you certain there's nothing romantic there? The sudden turnaround of H being friendly to not liking you almost seems like you were maybe fine when things were casual, but she got jealous once you and Jay got serious. If he's gonna stress you out about your wedding, but prioritize his bestie, this sets the tone for your entire marriage. Are you sure you want to be the second best to your husband? It doesn't even have to be romantic for there to be that jealous angle. Some people just hate it when they aren't someone's number one priority. This should be something people leave behind as they grow up, because they learned that they can't be possessive over people, but some people are still stuck in it. Sure, it's his wedding too. However, she's his friend, not yours. Honestly, what kind of partner would do this? Try to convince their so to have a person that doesn't care about them to be their bridesmaid. OP, your partner doesn't sound kind and it sounds like a big deal. He's keeping that friend that talks badly of you and forces them on you. He's not respecting any of your boundaries. I suggest you reflect on your relationship in its entirety. How does he treat you? Reflect and don't make excuses for him. Loving people don't need to be excused for their behavior